Thanks for tuning in to the Wingspace podcast. This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wingspace podcast, a place to take up space. Welcome to season 5, where we are talking about the 5 pillars of wellness and all the components of food and nutrition, movement, sleep, stress, and relationships. Today, I'm going to talk about bucket lists, and you may have heard me talk about bucket lists before, but today I'm going to talk about them a little bit different and from a stress management perspective. Before I jump into this topic today, I would like to ask those of you that are listening or watching this to like the video, subscribe to our channel. I really appreciate all of you who listen to this podcast. And while I know that you do hear me encourage you as listeners to seek professional support from your own local providers in your area, sometimes the internet is about as far as we are able to go to get just a little bit of support and maybe feel seen and understood. So when you like this video or you subscribe to our channel, you are helping us to reach others who may be going just as far as the internet for information, and you help us to achieve our mission of making wellness accessible for everyone. So I really appreciate all that you can do to help us to spread the word of this podcast and information. So bucket lists. Let's talk about bucket lists. You've heard some episodes before where myself and some of our staff, we've talked about what's on our bucket list, but I want you to think a little bit about what your stress bucket is before we go into what's on the actual bucket list. So thinking about a bucket with regards to stress can sometimes be a good analogy to understand how we manage stress. And stress is one of our 5 pillars of wellness. And so I want to dive into that. I want you to imagine that everyone has an invisible bucket, if you will. And in that bucket, it is where we hold stress. And throughout the day, we add lots of different things to it. They could be big events, they could be small events, they could be family health crisis, they could be, forgetting to pick up milk at the grocery store. They build up over time and they fill that bucket. All of us, like I said, have a different, we all have this bucket, but they're all different sizes. So the things that impact our stress and they impact our stress bucket are, the size and what goes in the bucket, what happens when it's overflowed, and how we empty it. When we have this bucket, not only does everyone have a different size bucket, but I really believe that based on the circumstances of our life and the season that we're in, our bucket might be a different size and have a different capacity for handling and holding our stress. Some people are predetermined. They have some kind of an ability to have a bucket that holds a little bit more before they feel overwhelmed, while others may feel stressed out sooner. So their bucket may have a smaller capacity. We know that what fills that bucket are things that range from those everyday stressors like work and family responsibilities, finances, our health concerns, but even positive things add to that bucket. So I'm recording this episode coming off of Easter weekend. So of course, holidays can fill it up, planning for events that are upcoming. All of those things impact what goes into our bucket from a good or a bad stress perspective. I've talked about stress before on the podcast. You might reference the show notes for the episodes on, good stress, bad stress, and kind of the idea of the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? What's really important is not really so much how big our bucket is and what fills our bucket, but what do we do when it's overflowed or when we really need to empty it? If too much stress, good or bad, fills the bucket, without opportunities to release. So imagine a bucket with kind of like a faucet on the side, right? That we can turn it on and turn it off so that we can release some of the water and save some of it. The overflow happens when that faucet is not turned on and nothing can naturally leak out, and it begins to overflow. We feel overwhelmed, we feel anxious, maybe we feel burned out. And our tipping point when that bucket is overflowing is when we are no longer able to manage the stress that's coming our way. So what do we do? How do we prevent the bucket from overflowing? Well, this is where we need to have regular releases for some of the stress. Not all of it is going to be able to be released. There's not always things that we can take off of our plate. But when we have healthy coping strategies, these are things that are almost the things that help us to turn the faucet to allow the bucket to drain. Those healthy coping strategies are key. And so I want to remind you of some of those, and I want to give you some ideas as we go into spring. This is oh gosh, late April already. I'm not sure how we got here so fast. I found this really great visual, and I'm happy to link it in the show notes. It comes from mytherapyworks.com, and it's a visual that shows a stress-free summer bucket list. So here we are talking about bucket lists, but I want you to think about, instead of what are the things on my bucket list, the things that I want to do, rather, what are the things that are on my bucket release list? What are the things that are going to help me to remove some of the water from the bucket and to release some of the stress and the overwhelm that I'm feeling? Many of these things that I'm going to talk to you are supposed to be stress-free. They're not supposed to cause more stress. They're also things that are not supposed to cost you money and potentially can just easily be done. One of the first things on the list is do yoga or meditate outdoors. Now, I know for some of you, you're thinking, well, obviously that costs money. Well, it doesn't have to. We have smartphones, we have iPads, we have laptops that are easily taken outside, and we have free resources, not only on our own website at hopehealingtherapy.com, but there's an array of free resources available. So I might invite you to go to our website and click on one of the guided meditations or progressive muscle relaxations that don't have an audio behind it. Then you can sit outside and listen to your own birds chirping and wind and the breeze, rather than what we have put behind it. So you can easily do some meditation. You can find free yoga online so that it doesn't have to cost you anything, right? We want to make sure that we're releasing stress from that bucket without there being a cost. You can make anything that's going to kind of tantalize the senses are going to be very helpful in providing stress relief. So when we talk about going outdoors and we can see and we can smell and maybe even taste, we can touch, right? So how do we do that? We maybe make some lemon infused or some mint infused water. Simple enough. You cut up a lemon, you put it in some water, you let it sit for a little while. Maybe the water sits in the sun while you're doing your yoga or your meditation. I remember as a kid, one of my grandmothers used to make sun tea, and she would have this big glass pitcher and she would put her tea in it and maybe throw some lemons in it, and it would sit outside for hours while the sun kind of baked the tea. And it was good. It was refreshing. And you could do the same thing, kind of make a lemon tea or a lemon water while you're doing your yoga. We can sit outside, maybe in a comfy chair. If you have a hammock, maybe just grab a beach chair or a camping chair and sit outside, listen to the birds, listen to the variety of sounds that come. When we are engaging our senses in that way, we are grounding ourselves, we are being mindful, and we're giving ourselves an opportunity to breathe some fresh air, get some sunshine, and just release some of that through the breath, and through the engagement in the environment. So maybe while you're outside, you take some healthy snacks, you have a picnic or some kind of a lunch or dinner outside. I do have kind of a spring summer list of my own, and one of those is to eat outside. And I don't know that it necessarily counts if I'm going out to dinner and my family sits in the outdoor dining area. I think what might be a better option is if we had dinner outside on our porch one evening and listened to the environment around us. You've heard us talk on the podcast a lot with our nutritionist, and other guests that we've had about the importance of healthy snacks. And it's one of the 5 pillars of wellness as we feed our body nutritious food. When we are feeling stressed, we are much more likely to get those go-to, typically processed, unhealthier options. If you can be intentional about going to the grocery store and buying some quick, easy snacks, maybe some veggies and some hummus, or grab some apples and some peanut butter or some almond butter, quick, easy snacks that are healthy, that are going to fuel your body for what's to come. Because again, when we're stressed, we don't typically make the time. Or you could be in a situation where you get a call that a family member is being suddenly taken to the hospital. And so that lunch that you had packed that requires a microwave is no longer something that you can necessarily utilize. Although I have been known to just eat a casserole that's cold because it is what it is. So how can you kind of create almost a mini retreat for yourself? As I'm talking, I'm imagining kind of, a blanket or a yoga mat, and I'm going outside and I've got some lemon water and I've got maybe some healthy snacks, and I'm going to sit on my mat. I'm going to do some meditation. I'm going to do some yoga stretches. Maybe I'm even going to then eat my lunch while I'm sitting out there. This sounds, for some of you, might sound like a big deal, right? This is going to take an hour. This is going to take more. I don't have that kind of time. What if you just gave yourself 10 minutes, right? What if you just gave yourself 10 minutes because you're worth it? You're worth that time. And the love and the care that you're providing to those around you, they are worth having you at your best. And so this little retreat moment that you can create for yourself may be the 10 minutes that's going to make or break the day. I find such joy in watching a sunrise. Now, for some of you, you might say, if I'm stressed, the last thing I want to do is wake up. I hear you. I get it. But sometimes I'm awake and I'm sitting in my favorite chair in my sunroom area. You've heard me talk about it before. And I don't take time to notice that through the trees, the sun is rising and the sky is turning pinks and orange and red and purple and all the various colors of a sunrise. And I just take a minute to watch it. And I take a minute to be grateful for the sunrise. It doesn't have to be like I do when I go on vacation. Anytime we go on a vacation to the beach, typically, and we're not really a beach family, to be quite honest with you. There's something about sand that just kind of gets me. But when we do go, which is maybe once a year, maybe not so often, but anyway, when we go, I always try to make it a point that one of those mornings I get up early, I walk out to the beach, and I watch the sunrise. There's something about watching the view without any obstruction of the sun coming up on the horizon that is just amazing. And for me, when I'm looking out my back window, of course, the trees are there and, there's things in my backyard that I'm watching. So it's not an unobstructed view, but I can still take some time to breathe in that morning and just enjoy the colors of the sun, the sky as the sun rises. You've heard us talk about it before, but I cannot stress the importance of journaling, whether it's gratitude journaling and writing down what you're thankful for, whether it's prayer journaling. I actually did this morning. We've got several things going on in our family, good and not so good. And so, I wrote just a few sentences where I thanked God for the things that I could be grateful for, related to these special people in my life. And then I asked God for the things that I needed, for healing, for peace, for comfort, for guidance, for protection, and just took a few minutes to breathe. So what am I grateful for? Maybe I'm leading it as a intentional prayer. Maybe I'm just brain dumping, pen to paper and dump it all out. Not a worry about grammar and punctuation and spelling and what am I saying. I'm just going to dump it all out so that I can make room for what's important up there and clearing out some of the junk. I would invite you to consider what it would look like to play. And for some of you, as we talk about journaling, we think about as teenagers when we had Dear Diary, and it can be like that, but it can also be different. But what if we also considered what it would be like to play? I have a coloring book right here on my desk, and I make sure that, I went to the dollar store. This was given to me as a gift, and I went to the dollar store and I bought some colored pencils. And so I have this here next to me so that when I have a few minutes to color, I just sit and I color, and I give myself a chance to slow down and remember what it was like to be a kid when the things that we thought were the worst things in the world, might not be so bad. But maybe we go outside and we play. We turn on the sprinkler and run around with our kids. We play with water balloons. We go for a walk. We go ride bikes. Maybe we do a quick game of kickball, or pickleball is huge around here now. What's it like to play and not to be worried about competition and winning and losing, just playing? As we kind of round out this idea of ideas that you might use to release the stress from your bucket, what other senses can you engage, or what other ways can you engage the senses? Maybe you buy yourself flowers. Maybe you buy yourself and someone else flowers. Yesterday was Easter, and I bought flowers at my church to beautify the sanctuary, and one of those flowers went to my mom and one of them went to my mother-in-law. And ironically enough, each of them had given me a flower as well. So it feels good to give. It feels good to receive. And sometimes we have to give to ourselves. Maybe you support a local florist or a local farm that has cut your own flowers. So we're supporting someone else, but we're also putting something beautiful within our own space. Maybe we listen to our favorite music. Maybe we make a fun cocktail, whether it's a alcoholic cocktail of some kind, or even a mocktail. Sometimes it's fun just putting a little juice with some sparkling water and, sticking some fruit in it. Maybe we look at one of those 5 pillars of wellness, the last one being relationships, and we have a conversation. Maybe that outdoor meditation mealtime is with a friend or our partner or our child. What can we do for ourselves that we might do for other people? I would love to believe, and I try to believe, that we are kind, loving people, and we do things for others much more often than we do for ourselves. So what if we did for ourselves what we would do for someone else? We compliment ourselves. We say nice things to ourselves. We stop and get that yummy coffee for ourselves, or maybe take the time in the morning to make your own coffee, right? Think about what's the recipe for stress relief for you. It might feel too big, but can you pare it down? Can you make it mini? That's why I mentioned the idea of a mini retreat. We do a staff retreat here at Hope and Healing every year, and it's a whole weekend. We've grown into a whole weekend event. I'm not asking you to take a whole weekend. I'm asking you to take 5 minutes. And if you can engage your senses, maybe you step outside with no shoes on, you feel the warmth of the concrete, or your deck under your feet, you feel the sun, You smell the fresh cut grass or the flowers. Maybe you're holding a nice warm cup of coffee and you can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it, the breeze, the sunshine. Just give yourself a few minutes to kind of shake off the day and be ready for what's coming next. Because regardless of the size of your bucket and how much your bucket can hold, you have the capacity to turn the faucet on and to release some of that, because there's always going to be more that comes in. So I invite you today to consider, how can you be intentional about releasing your pressure and the water level of your bucket? We certainly have resources here available at Hope and Healing with our yoga classes. And, maybe it's getting a class with one of our nutritionists so that you can learn about feeding your body well. Maybe it's taking that step and engaging in some mental health counseling. Maybe it's getting yourself a massage. Those things cost money. So maybe it's just walking outside with a cup of coffee or tea or lemonade that you've made at home and just giving yourself a few minutes to breathe. I would love to hear your ideas about how you engage in stress relief. I would love to hear your ideas about things that are exciting upcoming for you in this end of spring. I guess we're middle of the spring, really, and into the summer. So as always, I would invite you to share those ideas with us on your socials. Tag us. Tell us what you're doing for stress relief. I'd love to see when people are taking care of themselves and providing some self-care and some self-love, and obviously some stress relief. So I appreciate you listening today, and I look forward to seeing all that you're going to do in the coming days and weeks and months to manage your stress and to manage your bucket. To our dedicated listeners, we appreciate you liking this video, subscribing to our channel. And if you have something you want to share, I would love to hear about it. Next Wednesday, we're going to be looking at some ideas about travel and how to use travel as means for some stress relief, for some relationship building, and just for having some fun. So as always, thanks for listening and have a great day.